I don't really understand why this is, but sumo stance deadlifts, sumo stance good mornings are so much more taxing on the posterior chain. It's absolutely crazy. I decided to try sumo stance good mornings again for the second time. This time I didn't do them strict, stiff leg. I kind of had some knee bend in them. Before that, I did some sumos again. So I worked up to 170 sumos, then I went to conventional, went up to 220. Man, the lower back gets absolutely smoked. The hamstrings are so much more active in the sumo. Now, I'm doing sumo in a conventional kind of hip hinge. So basically, a lot of you guys said in yesterday's video, you're doing wide stance conventional pulls. The reason why I started to think about these and decided to do them yesterday was because Louis said in one of his videos, if you really want to target the lower back, one way to target it is to do sumo stance pulls. We're kind of like stiff-legged or something along those lines. So I did them yesterday, and my lord, does that put the lower back on the map. It absolutely smokes. And I did it today again. I did a whole bunch of sets. I did 10 sets of 10 at 50 kilos, good mornings with a wide stance. Man, the lower back gets absolutely smoked. The hamstrings are much more active. I don't understand why that is. When I've got my feet more narrow, it feels as though there is a fascial kind of restriction there. Like you go down and you feel that tightness in the hamstring kind of stop you, and then you go back up. It's almost like the fascia kind of calls the quits in terms of the range of motion, and then you go back up. When your legs are wide, it's almost like you're bypassing this fascia, and you can go deeper and explore that hamstring a little bit more. And because of that, bigger hip flexion, obviously there's more pressure on the whole posterior chain. So it's kind of like doing more work with less weight because you can do more range of motion. So I had a blast today, man. This session took me 2.5, 3 hours. So I did sumos, conventional deadlifts, did 10 by 10 on the good mornings, went to squats, worked up to 160 for 5. Then I went back to sumos and I did another bunch of sets with 100 kilos. So I was just basically exploring, trying to kind of come up with some answers why that is. I don't understand why. Obviously, the traditional sumo stance deadlifts, the whole point of that is to have you kind of more vertical, have more vertical, more leg drive. Yeah, sure, it's kind of harder to kind of break it off the floor initially. You spend some time there, you persist, and then eventually when you break that weight off the floor, it seems like an easier lockout. That's kind of the advantage of sumo. Whereas traditionally speaking, conventional deadlifts, a lot of people are quite quick off the floor and then they slow down at the top. And there's leverages involved in all of that. If you got short arms, you're probably more suited for sumos. If you go, big legs, long legs, all that stuff. But I purely did them to target the posterior chain. I had no, ambitions of lifting more weight. Like, I'm not a sumo puller, but I'm going to train the sumo kind of in that conventional setup way. Last time I tried sumo, I was so focused on spreading my legs, pushing my feet out, trying to keep upright. It just wouldn't work, man. Like I couldn't get into those positions. My hips can't get close to the bar no matter what I did. And so I kind of got disheartened and left it at that. Even though last time when I was trying sumo, this is probably like 2 months ago now, I said to you guys, there's a lot of benefit, and everyone says, Ed Cohen said it, Louis Simmons says it, all these guys say it, that if you are a conventional puller, you should probably spend some time doing sumo and vice versa, because the opposite lift is probably going to strengthen your weaknesses, whether it's your hips, your back, or whatever the case might be. For me, the sumo feels a lot weaker, especially in this kind of wide stance, conventional. My lower back is completely exposed. It's really weird to kind of think that, but who would have thought that the sumo, like something about having wide stance puts more pressure on the lower back, especially if you're doing it kind of like bent over. I don't know why that is, because the hamstrings are still involved, right? The adductors are more so involved. So I'm yet to kind of work out why that is, but Louis right, man. Again, Louis was right. That wide stance builds your lower back. I felt it today. Like right now I'm sitting here and I feel like I'm all erect because my lower back is so pumped. So much blood in the lower back. I worked up to 170 for, I think, was it a single that I did today? I can't remember now. I think I'm going to find out now. Usually when I make these videos, I don't even look at the screen, but I think this is going to be the 170. Or has it already been? Not sure, but 170 is what I did on the sumo. I went to conventional. The moment I went to conventional, I felt a lot weaker because I've already kind of taxed. Yeah, this is the sumo. Already taxed my posterior chain, like the lower back, and so I felt kind of weaker. And I didn't have that explosion that I usually do with the conventional. It was a triple. So this is something I'm gonna keep in the program. You guys know that the whole freaking mindset right now is to hammer the hell out of my posterior chain. Absolutely go bonkers on the posterior chain because of history. Because every single time I've done this, I've had good results both in the deadlift and the squat. And funnily enough, when I did all those good mornings wide stands, and I went back to squats, felt really good, man. It's almost like, I spoke about yesterday why the ATG squat carries over so well to the deadlift. It's because of that lower back, deep hip flexion, and trying to extend your hip and squat out of that deep hip flexion is just, it's empowering to the core. It trains the core, the lower back really, really well. And so the sumo is another tool in that same kind of goal of strengthening that lower back. He's just in a fancy position. It's really weird how that works. So I'm going to try and do that every other day for volume. Tomorrow my plan is to come in again and do sumo. So right now, man, the way I've got it is sumo every single day. I don't know how that's going to go. I'm hoping to do that. I'm probably going to get into some trouble when I get back to work and I can't really deadlift every day. I can't deadlift 5 o'clock in the morning. But I had a thought, maybe I can do it in the off the rack, kind of like rack pull sumo, and put it on the lowest, and then put some towels or something underneath. It's not going to be heavy weights. It's going to be 100 kilos. Do something so I just stop that clicking of the weights, the barbell and the plates. I don't want the clicking because no matter what you do, there's always going to be a click. I'm trying to kind of move silently in the morning. So maybe I can do sumos every single day. And then every other day, on my days off as well, I'm going to just go for volume like I did today. A whole bunch of sets of sumos. Just feels good. Good morning sumos. I don't know whether to keep good mornings as an arrow stance and just have the sumos for the wide stance, or do both sumo deadlift and sumo good morning, because there's something special about the wide stance. I don't know what it is. Just feels it's like a different angle, and I feel like I'm getting different kind of angle on the hamstrings as well. I just feel so exposed. Like I said, like when you got narrow feet, I don't know what it is, but there's like a hot feeling at the back. It's almost like that not the vagus nerve, the femoral nerve. Is it the femoral nerve? Yeah, the big femoral nerve that kind of runs in the back of your leg. When we stretch our hamstrings, you feel that kind of hot feeling, that kind of burning feeling. A lot of people think that that's actually the hamstring muscle. No, muscle doesn't feel like that. It's usually a nerve being trapped underneath, maybe that muscle or maybe that fascia. And so oftentimes, if you kind of rotate your legs out, so almost like a planche, a pancake rather, position, you feel like you're bypassing that femoral nerve in a way, and you can get more out of a hamstring stretch. Whereas if you go, heels together and you lean over and you kind of try and grab your toes, it feels like there's a hot burning feeling. It feels like it's just a different feeling. And so that's what I'm feeling with these sumos. I am going around that nerve. That's kind of what I think is happening, because it's a completely different sensation. When I'm in the sumo stance, I feel it's just all about muscle. In a narrow stance, I feel like something is blocking me on the way down, especially when I first come in and I do good mornings cold. It's just different. But today with sumos, I felt like I was straight into my hips right away. And the other benefit of the sumos is hip flexors, man. I felt my hip flexors really work. The groin opened up. It's just a beautiful feeling to get you, into squatting. So maybe this is something to think about, especially those early morning sessions when I wake up and I'm all locked up and I can't really do anything. Maybe just some simple 60 kilos or 100 kilos on the sumo will open me right up. Engages all the hip flexors, engages the hamstrings, the glutes. It does everything. Here I am talking about the sumos in a positive light, and for freaking majority of my training career, I was basically, it was revolting to me to see sumos. It was just the most unathletic, cheating. Those are the thoughts that I had. It's only been the last probably year that I've started to kind of fully understand that there is something there. You know, is it a great expression of strength? I don't particularly like it. I don't like it. I just have this affinity towards conventional. I feel like when I see somebody pull heavy weight with a conventional, I'm like, it's just a different kind of respect to it. But I think sumos as a training modality, I think everyone should be doing sumos. It's just different. It's different. But you know, I'm getting more and more respect. It seems as though to me that, you know, all the top deadlifters in the world, maybe everyone other than kind of the strongman competitors, they kind of do conventional still, but everyone seems to be pulling in sumo. I don't know what it is, but I feel like 9 out of 10 times a world-class deadlifter seems to be sumo. Unless, you know, like I said, these big strongman guys, you know, who are like 180 kilos or whatever, they seem to be sticking with conventional. So I don't know what's going on. Is it an easier lift? I'm not sure. It probably is. Definitely it isn't for me. It's kind of like, you know, the same type of conversation, same type of feeling when I see somebody squat to parallel. Yes, it's impressive, like whatever, you know. If you're squatting 260 kilos, 300 kilos, you are a strong dude no matter what. But when I see somebody squat 260 ATG, is just a different type of thing. I just have so much more respect for it. It's a beautiful sight to me. It's just more aesthetically pleasing and more rewarding to do. But that's just my personality. That's what I like. I said to you guys, I wouldn't have gotten into all of this weightlifting stuff if it wasn't for Klokov. The moment I saw that dude pause that 250 ATG, pause it, the bar stopped. And he took another breath and then exploded out of that position. Full ATG, fully upright front squat. I was like, man, that is up there with seeing Michael Jordan freaking dunk on Patrick Ewing, man, like on that baseline turnaround. Like, it's just beauty, man. It's beauty because in that whole mix, you have strength, you have power, you have mobility, flexibility, core strength. You just have everything. It's kind of like a perfect car, man. It's like, you know, it's hard to find that type of stuff. So even though now you see a lot of guys 300 kilos squatting left, right, and center, it just seems like a common occurrence. It's all low bar. The bar is sitting halfway down their spine. So the lever's really, really short. They barely get to parallel and go up. That's kind of what I see. Even though it might be a parallel, it's, you know, 3 white lights and whatever. I get it. But it's a half squat. No matter how I think about it, it's a half squat to me. If people say that's a full squat, then what do you call an ATG squat? A 1.5 squat? Like, I don't know. But after everything is said and done, I still respect all that stuff. But when it comes to ranking, what I get excited about, it's always the full mobility stuff. I'm never going to be enticed by putting on a belt, sleeves, wrap my head and wrap my wrists, knees, every freaking joint in the body, wrap every single vertebra in my spine, get a forklift and do the lift for me. That to me is just not exciting. The more gear I see, man, the less I'm like, whatever, man. Like, that's kind of my feeling. Having that said, if we are in the gym and we're all training, we're still buddies, we're all the same type of people. But, you know, if you ask me to rank what I love to see in the gym, that's exactly right. I love to see conventional, I love seeing ATG. I love seeing, you know, range of motion being addressed and respected. That's me. You might be different. However, after saying all of that, I still think sumos have a place in training. I still think parallel squats have a place in training. And this is an evolution for me because I used to think I don't want to squat a parallel ever. I still like to break it up. So whether it's a box squat or a pin squat, I still think it's not the greatest thing for your joints to stop that much weight, you know, halfway in a parallel squat. I feel like it's just way too much pressure. Whereas when you go to an ATG, it's almost like a suspension mechanism of your thighs, of your hamstrings sitting in your calves. It's kind of like an easier way. You know, it's not all on the ligaments of the knee, you know. And so that's why I like box squats. That's why I like pin squats. It's just a better way. So raw parallel squats, not for me. But sumos, man, it's one of those things. If you are a sumo puller and you do conventional for the first time, you're probably going to be weak. And you're probably going to expose things that you are kind of lagging on. And so I think it's one of those things. I'm just doing something that I'm not accustomed to, and I feel like it's going to be good for me. Good mornings and sumo deadlifts. The only thing I'm kind of thinking about is it's probably going to be freaking expensive to do these sumos deadlifts. The good mornings, that's fine, because I'm using 50 kilos, big deal, really light, therefore it's going to be really inexpensive. But, doing 170 every day on the deadlift, maybe it's too much. Even though my max is 265 on the deadlift, in the sumo, it's nowhere near that. I think if I have to go back in the log, I reckon I pulled 200 in the sumo once. That was 2 months ago. But once again, that was just a stiff-legged sumo. It was not a sumo as we call sumo. Definitely don't have the mobility for that. Definitely don't have the hips for that. Definitely have a weakness. My knees go in, if I try to stay upright. So I don't have the mobility. I don't have that hip abduction in me. There's no strength in those muscles for me to kind of keep my knees out and my pelvis really close to the bar. That's what you want to see in a sumo. That's the whole benefit of a sumo, but I just can't assume those positions. It's just impossible for me. But I'm going to try and do this. It's all kind of evolved from, see how there's a progression. There's an evolution of thinking here. Good mornings first sparked my idea after Louis kind of mentioned them. I think they're better than RDLs. And interestingly enough, I've kind of seen Louis talk poorly about RDLs. He doesn't like RDLs. So he likes good mornings. I've tried good mornings. Good mornings feel amazing. Now I'm doing good mornings on a wide stance, and that felt amazing. So I'm like, okay, damn, maybe I should try sumos. It's kind of like a step-by-step process of evolution. So maybe the whole picture that I need to worry about is just the widest stance. I remember when I did wide stance squats, that also felt like incredibly weak, and I didn't know what was going on. Like, it's completely different musculature. So if you're listening to this and you're hardcore set in concrete, set in stone beliefs about conventional ATG, I think it's worth your while to kind of think about the other side. I remember I was talking to one of you guys on the net, and that was the first time it occurred to me that sumo has a place in the athletic world. And we were talking about where would you in the field or life get into a sumo to pick something up. And the fella said to me, well, how do you pick your couch up? And I was like, that's a really good point, dude, because we just recently moved in at the time. And I was like, yeah, I picked it sumo. It was probably more like a frog stance deadlift. But yeah, of course, wide stance makes sense. The sumo wrestlers are in those positions. When you see those NFL guys, rugby guys, they're not in conventional stances. They're like really wide stance, whatever it's called, the ruck or whatever. I'm not really into rugby or any of that. But, there are, it started to kind of, making sense to me that there are positions on the field that you would do that. Now I'm thinking about a basketball court where you would never find yourself in that position, jumping from that position but that doesn't mean that's the only sport on the planet. And then you start incorporating the ideas that sumo targets the other muscles of the hip, which are probably going to assist your conventional, and then it just starts making sense and starts to have that snowball effect of reasoning why you should be doing that. So there you go. Wide stance, sumo stance, good mornings and deadlifts. Here I come. Predominantly because of the posterior chain. Maybe down the track I'll learn how to do sumo properly, but for now I'm using it as an accessory to my conventional and to my ATG. I want to thank Johan G. He's the latest name on the Patreon list of supporters. Appreciate you, man. It's really it's a beautiful thing for me to see names keep popping up here in support of me. So appreciate you, man. As I appreciate all the other names on the list. Appreciate everyone on Instagram messaging me. I love having these conversations, whether it be on YouTube comments or Instagram. There's a lot of you guys now, so it's a bit of a delay for me to get to everyone. But when I have a free moment, you guys know what I like to think about most, which is training and trying to break these plateaus and get better. And you guys are feeding me thoughts, ideas, and I throw back ideas at you guys, and it's just a win-win situation in my eyes. All right, guys, I'll leave you at that. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.